Hi everyone, so this is Elizabeth from Love from Lizzie with February 17 card kit, 10 cards, 1 kit video. It's a bit of a mouthful. Okay, I'm jumping straight in here with card 1, and I'm afraid the whole video is very sped up just for ease, I'm afraid, so that we can get through it all. And all I did was I split one of the card blanks in half widthways. And I did that with all of the cards, and then I've just lined up the deer head paper where I wanted it to sit, and then use my T-square ruler on the reverse side to line and then cut with some large bladed scissors, and then I've cut the line in sort of in line with the deers, if that makes sense, so that it has like a natural finish to the pattern paper. And I'm using my chunky Nuvo glue pen just to stick that directly onto the card front and then give it a good press down from the back. I'm really sorry in advance for all of my head that you see in this. I've got a new setup with my camera and it's not quite perfect yet, but it's freed up a lot of desk space, so far it's great. And now I'm running the smaller of the 2 peel-offs that came in the kit just along the edge, and I'm popping the rest back because the little scraps are great for tags and things. Turning it over to the back to just trim off the excess so that it's got a nice tidy edge on it. And then using my Misty, I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Now, the Misty is not necessary. You can use an acrylic block, of course, but make sure you season your stamps before you do, because I was using the Misty, I could be lazy and just re-stamp it a few times. But if you use like Versa mark on them first, on your stamp, brand new stamps, then it dirties the edges and it will take the ink a bit better. Anyway, using some multi-medium in the matte finish here, I've just sort of randomly splodged a few blobs around and then popped some of the sequins in the pink and silver, which coordinate nicely with this paper. Oh, and I should have mentioned, sorry, that the ink that I used for the sentiment was Hollyhock Simon Says stamp. And now I'm just dropping in some of the Nuvo drops that came in the kit into the centre of the silver sequins. So that was card 1. This is card 2. And I'm just using the other half of the card that was cut last time. And this is that beautiful battened paper. Now, I have since found out that everybody's jumped on the challenge that I set with the unboxing. So I'm going to try to arrange a bonus video, if I have time, where I will use the 8x8 and make a card that large. So anyway, here we go. I've measured up the whole size of the card base, turned it on the back, cut it up using the T-square ruler and some large scissors, giving it a good press with the Nuvo after putting Nuvo glue on the back, trimming around the edges to make sure that the lines are nice and straight, and now using some of that silver mirror, excuse my face, I've cut using the ornate die key from silver, and then I did the same with the tag, but when I removed the key portion of the craft, I was very careful to keep all the pieces in the same spot. And now I'm putting some double-sided tape on the back. It doesn't actually need to be double-sided at all, it's just so that there's something sticky, and then I laid in the silver key and laid the brown key over the top and just used a blunt pencil to push the pieces through into the tape. And here's some of the organza ribbon that was part of the kit, and I just loop it through the top and sort of position it where I think it will look nice. And then I run a couple of the wider peel-offs. Again, there's my hair making an appearance, apologies. And yeah, run just those down the edge just for a little bit of interest along the sides of the tag. And then trim off the edges from the reverse. And now get some 3D foam tape and just snip that down until it's about the right size, so not to stick to the ribbon where the little hole in the top of the tag is, or be visible at the bottom either, but nicely supported still. And then just remove the release paper from the reverse and position it on the front of the tag. Now, with a lot of my cards, I don't actually put sentiments on, which I know for some people are irked by, but I don't send all my cards straight away, so I like to be able to add a sentiment as is needed. So this, I think, would be a nice new home card. But anyway, I've just popped on some of the Nuvo drops in various places on the flowers, and that's it. So this is card 3. Again, I'm chopping the cardstock in half and then folding it and then using the bone folder, and I was determined not to waste this paper because it was so pretty. So I just chopped off the excess that was left over from the last one, and then I loosely measured out some of the pink, like damask pattern, and then popped some Nuvo on the back and stick that down nice and firmly, and then try to decide which way is going to be easiest here to trim, and I went with the width, which is slightly longer, but it means then that the card is still the right width if I want to do long ways strips. And then I glue down the bottom portion as well and do some trimming using the reverse of the card to push my scissors up against. And once that's all done, I pop some glue along the, oh, that's a lie, jumping ahead. Okay, so this large stamp, this bird stamp, is so pretty and it's so delicate that I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to manage to paint this pretty bird or colour this pretty bird without taking away from all the patterned papers. So I didn't want it to be too overpowering. So instead I lined it up in my Misty and gave it a double stamp. That's merely because my Versamark is running a little bit on the low side. So gave it a double stamp, and I then poured over some silver embossing powder by Nuvo. And then heat that with the heat tool, and then I'm using the glue to attach the silver. And the reason that I did that is because I didn't want to apply the heat to the silver. I'm not sure that it would be a problem, but I think if you've got the choice, applying heat to as little as possible is better. So there we go. That's card number 3. So card number 4, I'm using some of the craft cardstock that's in the kit. Folding it over, giving it a good press. You can obviously use a scoreboard if you want. I just don't know where mine is, sorry. Okay, and I've cheated here and I've added in a die set just so that I could cut an aperture in the front of the card. And then I've lined the stamp up through the hole, then opened it again. But again, this doesn't need to be done with the Misty. Okay, and again with Versamark, I'm stamping firmly on the inside, and I decided to give it a double stamp because I have it in the Misty and I can. Double check to make sure that I'm happy with how everything is, and this is the Shimmering Pearl embossing powder, and I haven't actually tried it on craft before, so I wanted to give it a go, and I'm actually really pleased with how it's come out. I think it does look really pretty. So obviously I heat set that, and now I'm just picking, I picked some of the green patterned paper, which is quite subtle, but it's really nice nonetheless. And then I drag the Versamark ink pad along the edges so that I can tie it in with the silver pearl, the Shimmering Pearl embossing powder. I did also stamp the sentiment, as you will see, but it just didn't stand out at all. So I had to do a little bit of a little fix, and I used the centre of the circle there that I'd cut earlier, and I stamped it in there. I did previously use the EK Success powder tool just to make sure there wouldn't be any static. And then once that was all heat set, I glued the green strip down, and then I foam mounted, after giving little banner ends to the tab, I foam mounted that sentiment over the top of the sentiment that you couldn't really see very well. And then trimmed off the excess of the green on the reverse side. And that's the end of that card. So here's card 5. Now this purple glitter cardstock is my favourite. I absolutely love it. And one of the other dies that was in the set with that circle is this doily die. So I cut the doily using the dye from the purple glitter. And then I like purple and green. I think they're a really good match. So I measured off a piece of the patterned paper to fit over the whole of the front of my card blank. And with this card, I could have used either craft or white. It wouldn't have really made much difference. When you're covering the whole of the card front, it's not a big issue. But because I wanted to use the white directly onto the front, I thought it'd be nice to have that base match with the pale cover. I'm hoping I'm making sense here. Probably not. Okay, so I've just glued that down again with my Nuvo pen. And I'm chopping a piece of the silver, which is ever so slightly wider than the ribbon. And this is how I often like to border ribbon. If I'm not using peel-offs, then I like silver just because it gives it a nice frame. And I've just put some double-sided sellotape on either end, and I attach one end, lay it down flat, and attach the other end. And then that way you get a nice, good straight line. And now I'm again using double-sided tape along the whole of the back there. I've lined my card front onto the cutting mat so that I can use the lines of the mat to make sure it's centred. And now I'm popping some foam pieces onto the back of the purple glitter doily. And I run a couple of the narrow peel-offs either side of the ribbon strip, keeping the extras, of course. And then I just trim off the little end pieces and remove all of the release paper from the back of the foam and pop that towards the top in the centre. And then I play around, not sure which to use, but I decided to go with the bird on the rose. And I could have coloured it, and yeah, it would have looked lovely, but I thought I'd just make it a nice shiny bird with glossy accents. And so I just left that to dry. And there we go. And here's card number 6. So again, I'm cutting it in half, making a side fold card. And I'm using some of the butterfly patterned paper. Now, if you're in my Facebook group, in the Love from Lizi Facebook group, you'll see that I was actually a little bit naughty and I shared a picture of this card because once I'd made all of these cards, it seemed like such a long time until I'd be able to share them that I thought I'd just sneak peek a little photo of one. So, okay, so I've trimmed that out and I'm using my T-square ruler just as a guide to make sure I get it straight because I have cut the panel larger than it needs to be so that I can trim away, but I don't want it to be attached wonky. So I just make sure that the ruler's straight at the top of my card and then I can lean the paper up against the top of it. And then I've just trimmed off the rest, as always, from the... And now I'm working out the ribbon on the silver card again, just to make sure I get a decent width. And now you see, this is where you need to make sure that you do actually have the right width card. I didn't explain that in the last one, which I should have done, sorry. If it's slightly longer, then it will be too wide when you wrap the ribbon. So you do need to make sure that you have the mirror cut to be the right size. It just means you have to be a little bit more careful when you lay it down. But yeah, so I made sure everything was okay and I decided it was still a hair too wide, so I gave it another trim. And now, having got the ribbon where I was happy, I just folded the ends over and again laid another piece of the tape on the back. And I popped this towards, I'd say like a third of the way down of that patterned paper. It wasn't quite in the middle. And here I was umming and ahhing, oh, and there's my happy face cutting the silver mirror. It's not very good. You feel like you have to have a full face of makeup when you're using this mirror when you're crafting. Okay, so I've cut 2 of the heart keys from the silver mirror, and then I've just folded the ribbon a couple of times just to make it a bit pointy to get it through the 2 loops of the keys. And then I sort of fuss with it a little bit and measure some organza to match. I didn't bother trying to loop the organza through. No one would know once it's all tied up anyway. So, and then I was messing around thinking about how I wanted to do it. was happy with how long the ribbons were. So I untied the knot again and then just tied them both, the organza and the spotty ribbon, directly onto the band that was running around the silver. It was a little bit fiddly, if I'm honest, but I'm really pleased with the result. So as far as I'm concerned, it was worth the fiddling. And I just trimmed the tails down a little bit there. Something with hindsight that I would have done would have been glue the keys together with just a bit of tape before I had them on the ribbon, because I did do it afterwards and it was a bit fussy. But anyway, yeah, so I've Versamarked ink the Enjoy and then heat embossed it with the Silver Nouveau. Now, I'm really sorry, but card 7, the beginning, for some reason, my camera wasn't recording. So you didn't actually get to see me laying this washi tape down. But all I did was I just laid a piece down and then angled it at 90 degrees and went off in the other direction and then just went down the card. So it's very simple and basic design. And then I used the stag. Now, please be warned, I pulled the stag off by its horn, I suppose you'd call that, antler, which was really stupid because it actually caused it to split. The glue is really strong, so just be careful when you're taking them off is my advice. And this particular stag has got blooms in its horns, antlers, however they're called. And so I just used the Nouveau, but I dabbed quite hard so that it didn't raise up, it would just colour it. And then using Versamark with the Love and Wishes sentiment, I just stamped into the gaps between the washi tape. This isn't my favourite card, to be honest, but it's different to the sort of thing that I usually do. So it was interesting to try, and I'm pleased. I am actually quite pleased with how it came out in the end, considering. Here I am using glossy accents to go over the top of the stag, and I'm just using some of the glittery enamel dots that came in the kit as well. And a word of warning here, that bottom large dot that's hanging over the bottom of the card, I was hoping to be able to cut, and I did try to cut, and it nearly broke my scissors. So they are really good, strong glitter dots. Please excuse my head again. So don't try that at home. I did just pop another layer of the glossy accents on, and I did wrap a little bit of washi tape around the edge, I don't know if you saw there, just so that when it dries flat. So anyway, here's card 8. And this did not turn out at all how I thought it was going to. And I was going to cut it out and do another card, but then I thought, no, this is one of the 10 cards that I made with my kit, and I would have had to cheat and put other supplies in to change it out. So it's in here, I'm afraid, people. But I have a craft card base. I use the front of the card to measure onto the patterned papers, and then I use a die, which is from Mama Elephant So Fancy, to cut out a centre to make a frame. And then I'm using my fuse tool here with a sleeve wallet just to measure a pocket that will fit behind that frame. And then I use, I would say, about a third of the sequins from the bag, maybe half, not quite half. And then seal them all in. Make sure that all the lines are where they should be, cut it out, and I reinforced all of the edges because I don't think I was very patient when I was waiting for it to heat up. And then I used multi-medium in the matte finish on the frame because I know that it will hold the plastic well. Once that's glued, it's, you know, multi-medium in the matte finish is really holds it still. So I popped that down, and then I cut off any of the little extra pieces of plastic that were hanging over the edge. And it was at this point that I thought, no, I don't like this. There was too many colours, and then with the grid as well in the background, I mean, maybe someone will like it, and I hope they do, but it's not my taste. But anyway, here we go. I stuck with it and tried to rock on. But I used the foam squares to lift the front up. And then the waist part of the keys, it's a bit of a happy coincidence, is a heart. So I used 3 of the little hearts, the leftover pieces, and I just glued them onto the tag so that there was something on there, there's a little bit of interest. And then I poked the organza ribbon through the hole, and had some multi-medium in the matte finish on the back of the tag, just to hold it down. And I did put some of the foam squares behind the tag, just so that there was a little bit of lift in the middle and it didn't sag. But this did stop the sequins from moving freely. So depending on what's more important to you, the sequins being able to move or whether there's a bit of sag, it's that's the option. But yeah, I mean, it did move around well, and it's a good shaker card, but it's not my taste. Anyway, card 9. So I am using the waist part from the shaker card, if you like, to make this card. And I cut a small frame around it using the silver mirri. And I can just use the Nuvo directly onto this. Gave it a good press, and then put it onto another craft piece. And then I die cut Hello. Now the Hello came from the same die set as the doily and the frame, so I didn't feel as though I was cheating too much by using it. And then, yeah, I just popped that on with some Nuvo again. That was the medium-sized pen. And I cut another little heart. I had this tiny little piece of silver left, so I popped it over the heart and ran it through. I love it when I get to use scraps like that. I feel as though I've cheated. But there. So I've sort of made a very simple little tag. Again, using some foam mounting tape and snipping it so that the hole is exposed, and so is, but the tag's still properly supported. And then take off the release. And at this point, I only had a tiny piece of the organza left, so it wasn't enough to knot. So I just popped some multi-medium in the matte finish behind the front, and I just folded it through, and put an acrylic block over the tails to hold them down while it was drying. And then, unfortunately, there isn't a finish of that card, but there is a still at the end. So here's card 10, and again, I'm using that doily die, and I laid it over the peacock as I wanted it, and then slid my card base underneath, just to make sure that I had it all in the right place for the pattern where I wanted it. And then using my T-square ruler, I cut out the shape of the card front. And then I just used my trimmer to trim those edges off. There was no salvaging them. There was no saving them for anything else. But anyway, so there we go. I've die cut one of the peacock heads, if you like, into the centre of the doily. Get all the little pieces out. And then I cut around the die again with the glitter, and I tape that over the hole that I've created using the card base covered in glue. Pressed it down, trimmed off all of the edges, and now when I lay the peacock doily over the top, there's the purple poking through, and I use that Hello die again in the purple glitter just to tie it all in. I foam mounted up the doily with the peacock on, and I popped that in the middle. And then multi-medium in the matte finish, just to make sure that the Hello sentiment would stay flat. And I think this may be my favourite card. I'm not sure. I do like to try and make them a little bit different, and this paper is just beautiful. So here are the 10 cards. I hope you like them. I hope you've become inspired by them. And these are the extras I used. I used the Misty, I used some acrylic blocks, my T-square ruler, Nuvo, multi-medium, various scissors, tweezers, pencils, bone folder, and my fuse tool. There was my trimmer, Versamark. I used the heat gun, some embossing powders, the Simon Says Hollyhock. That's the die set. And the leftover products, there's loads of peel-offs, mirror, glitter, there's enamel. There, as you can see, I'm running through it too quickly to keep up and talk, but there is still plenty of product for stash building and to make more cards with. So that was my 10 cards 1 kit with still plenty of pieces of paper. There is like 4 whole sheets of patterned paper left. So here are now the still shots. So a few updates. There is still some of the kits left in stock. There isn't many, but they're all boxed and ready to go for the 1st. You are able to buy add-ons until the 26th of the month if you have a subscription. So if you see anything in the shop that you'd like to buy and have put into the box with it, just make an order, drop me an email to let me know that you've done it, and then when I ship, I'll work out the difference for you and return some of the postage. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this, and please let me know which you think is best. There is a giveaway for a kit. All you need to do is comment below and tell me which is the favourite card, and I will draw on the 1st, on shipping day. I will draw a name out, and whoever I draw will get a kit. And if you've already purchased a kit, you can have next month's. But anyway, thanks, bye.